It's really kind of creating this ecosystem of how the brand can show up so that it's really relevant. So I think staying true to your roots and true to what you're really about and what inspires and why you exist, that bigger purpose behind you as a brand, but at the same time finding new ways of bringing it to life, whether it's products, whether it's experiences, whether it's content that makes it feel relevant, that it's part of my life today, not just, 30 years ago.
Hi, Victoria. How are you?
Hi, Angela. Great to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. I like to jump right in. And I want to first start with this notion of the importance of creativity. What has Crayola done in that realm?
Creativity and the importance of creativity and that belief in the incredible role that it plays really goes back to our founding as a brand 122 years ago. And the work that we're doing now really is focusing on elevating the conversation more broadly across the society and helping both parents and educators really understand what creativity is. And I know sounds like such an obvious thing, but believe it or not, there's quite a bit of misconception and certain myths around that, but helping them understand what it is, why it's important, and also what they can do individually and how it actually impacts their own work, and how their creativity shows up in terms of creative behaviors and the impact that it can make across the broader society. We really hope to continue to share our belief, some exciting research that we have that actually demonstrates and proves those points, and then continue to spread the word and continue to be a helpful resource for both parents and educators to help advocate and to help implement creativity in a really simple way every day at home or in the classroom.
There's this confusion or lack of knowing where creativity comes from. I often say it's a muscle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
What we have found through our research is that there's generally a pretty wide kind of belief that creativity is important. But when you start to peel the onion, this is where a lot of the myths come in. We see creativity very often being associated specifically with the artistic pursuits. So it only if certain careers that you're going to pursue that creativity matters. There's some beliefs around kids naturally growing out of creativity, as opposed to realize that they don't actually grow out of it. We tend to unconsciously unteach it. A lot of adults lack their own self-confidence in whether they themselves are creative and therefore whether they're actually able to nurture it in others. So when you put it together, you sort of have this situation where, yeah, we get it, but we don't really get it, nor do we know very much what to do about it. One of the things our campaign for creativity is looking to accomplish is to be able to really set that baseline understanding around what creativity is. And we start with something very simple, which is the definition. And we define creativity as putting your imagination into action. And if you really think about it, it's a verb, right? You put your imagination into action. And really creativity, it's about behaviors. It's not about an output or what you produce. It's actually about the process. And it's the creative behaviors, things such as exploring and considering many possibilities, learning from your mistakes, looking to solve problems. It's those kinds of things that are the demonstrations of creativity. And if you think about it that way, it doesn't actually matter what field you're in. It doesn't just have to be in what you call, quote unquote, traditionally creative fields. You can apply it regardless of the career path that you choose. And what's really interesting, you mentioned within arts educators, they're usually the creative champions, right? In their institution, in their schools, they get it. And I think they just have such an incredible ability to be that voice, to be that advocate, to help people around them understand how to incorporate creativity, which is a very real barrier, how to incorporate simple ways. This the bigger get of helping kids as well as adults really implement and practice these creative behaviors that are the ultimate manifestations of creativity. And we talk about creativity as a life skill. Again, it's not an output. It's a critical life skill that helps kids reach their full potential and that helps adults continue to live up to their full potential regardless of the job or career path that they have chosen.
In the arts, we focus too much on the performance. When we bring legislative leaders to the opening of the Nutcracker or Hamilton or a black tie gala, they're seeing magic. They're not seeing the process, which is where transformation happens. It's where that critical thinking, problem solving comes from. And so I really encourage organizations to engage stakeholders in the process. I've often had legislators saying, well, I get it. Yes, it's important, but I'm not very creative. So you're exactly right. It's reframing how we think of that, right?
Exactly. Again, it's all about creative behaviors and how you use them in order to be able to accomplish your outcome. So whether you are proposing a bill, whether you're building something, whether you are, part of NASA and you're trying to figure out how to get astronauts into space, all of those roles require creativity. The application might be different, but I think all of those require those behaviors. They're so instrumental. The way that I kind of like to talk about it is this idea of little C's, the little creative moments. So whether it happens at home, whether it happens in the classroom, but the little creative moments that you have that do produce an output or, a drawing or a, handcrafted some keepsake, those little C's individually, that's not what matters, but they do add up to a big C, which is the lifelong creativity and lifelong way of thinking. How do I solve it? How do I build it? How do I reflect what's in my mind and how I actually convert that into a visible form? That's where the magic happens. And I think this idea of, being able to really bring it to life and put your thoughts and ideas into a visible form, that enables you to develop that lifelong skill set of creative thinking, which is really what I think we really want all kids to be able to benefit from.
100%. We've spent decades, 30, 40 years, talking about how do we measure the impact of the arts. And we didn't know how to measure empathy or creativity or critical thinking. So we would rely on measuring outputs. How many tickets were sold? How many audience participants showed up? Or how many students were through a program? And we confused that and said that was the impact. When we have 2,000 subscribers, that's our impact, when in fact, that's an output. You've kind of gone beyond the crayon, if you will, in your creative experiences that you've all developed. What prompted you, or how did you move from the model of being Crayola, the brand, a function, a tool, to these creative experiences and creative placemaking?
As you talk about this idea of the output and really the benefit and how do you measure, right? Especially when you get into a school environment, right? And teaching. One of the things that we really focused as Crayola, and it really manifests itself in that signature program called Crayola Creativity Week, where it is incredibly arts integrated, but it's not for the sake of the art that you create. It's used as a way of learning across core subjects such as literacy. So it's standards aligned content, really, really high quality content. It's a lot of activities, it's prompts, it's, videos from really inspiring talent, but all with the intent of engaging kids in learning, using hands-on activities as a way of doing it, but at the end of the day, deliberate standards aligned learning around subjects such as literacy or social emotional learning. So I just personally love, and I'm really inspired by this idea of there's always the arts as the arts in the schools, and that's wonderful. And usually the art teachers are the biggest champions of creativity, but also just of creativity in the school. But also there's this idea of how do you use creativity? How do you use the arts in the main classroom to be able to really teach across subjects? So much more beyond just the arts in the arts classroom. The second point that you're talking about, how do we as a brand evolve? And I think this is one example. In the classroom, we sort of evolved the conversation. It's art room and it's the main classroom. But beyond that, as a company, we made very concerted kind of strides to evolve beyond products, but also to include a purposeful part of our strategy really focused on content and experiences. We are always going to be and have an amazing range of really creative, exciting products. That's, innovation and product is really in our bloodlines. But at the same time, we're building on that with experiences such as what I just described in the classroom through Crayola Creativity Week, or through the business that we have in location-based entertainment with our Crayola Experience attractions, where families can come and have full day of hands-on creative experiences, really immersed in creativity, immersed in Crayola, with lots of keepsakes, with lots of family memories that is really kind of creating that really immersive experience around creativity. We have digital experiences where sometimes, the canvas does not need to be physical. What if the canvas is digital? And if kids are already going to be using technology as they are, why not give them creative opportunities of creating those kinds of, the outlet and the experiences when the surface is an iPhone or a tablet, or a mobile device. So I think within the experiences, and then with content, we're also expanding. We've done a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work in social. I mentioned again content through Crayola Creativity Week. We've also expanded into entertainment, creating entertainment content shows and feature movies that are really aimed at celebrating and showcasing the power of creativity and really helping kids just see how cool it is to be able to put your imagination into action, to be creative, to use it as a way of solving problems or experiencing adventures. So I think if you kind of look at the brand today versus 10, 15 years ago, we have a lot more of that portfolio between products, experiences, and content that really create, all these touch points for kids, for families, for teachers to really come in contact and experience the brand that are all very consistent with that message of advocating for creativity, but done in different ways that create a much bigger, broader relationship and frankly, a lot more experience opportunities for kids, for parents, and for educators. Yeah.
But you've moved beyond just being the product, which I think there could be a through line with traditional arts organizations who feel like our mission has always been this. And so we need to live up to the tradition of a mission. How do you maintain that tradition of the nostalgia of Crayola to evolving?
Crayola has been around for 122 years. So I think nostalgia, it is a big part of our brand. But I think for us, it's kind of, the magic is in preserving those memories and those associations, but also finding new and relevant ways to have a conversation with our consumers, but also the kinds of things that we bring to market. So I think for us, it's really bringing that range of innovation that makes it feel really contemporary and fresh. And there's new ways. There's always the tried and true and the most iconic, like our crayons, but there's also new ways of having experiences, right? In the digital form, in kind of in the off-premise, like in an attraction environment. We can offer it if they're watching and looking for things on YouTube or through one that's streaming or linear networks. It's really kind of creating this ecosystem of how the brand can show up so that it's really relevant. So I think staying true to your roots and true to what you're really about and what inspires and why you exist, that bigger purpose behind you as a brand, but at the same time finding new ways of bringing it to life, whether it's products, whether it's experiences, whether it's content that makes it feel relevant, that it's part of my life today, not just, 30 years ago.
Crayola has been a leader in inclusion with your Colors of the World initiative. There are a lot of organizations right now struggling with the current climate with DEI. What is the company's stance? How do you view that work? I'm curious how you would reflect upon that inclusion notion and going forward, and if there's any suggestions or insight that you could provide.
Sure. Well, when we introduced that product line back in 2020, but the same holds exactly today. We felt that, and we wanted to make sure that every child felt included and represented, and that every child should be able to actually capture the world around them as they see it. Right. And that involves the ability to be able to represent themselves. And I think we felt that this idea of children to be able to reflect the world as they see it was really important. It was the biggest launch in our company history and something that we believe, continues to be really important. Each child needs to feel included.
Where does Crayola continue to build on the experience that you've established? Do you see a trajectory 5-10 years from now?
Well, first, I will say that there's numerous studies that have been published. There was one about a year ago from the Forbes that talked about what are the skills that are increasing in importance over the next 5 to 10 years. And it was done in the context of a workplace, and in the top 10 reasons, 3 out of the top 5 were behaviors associated with creativity. And the human cognitive abilities are actually declining. Some of the things are in declines are things and behaviors associated with creativity. It's never been more important than it is today, regardless of the field and the role that the arts and creativity actually play in both nurturing and preserving it. This is a lifelong skill, and it's a lifelong ability to develop and then keep it alive.
Are there resources that you provide to educators to partner with Crayola and bring that into the classroom?
Yeah, no, absolutely, we do. And Crayola Education has a tremendous wealth of resources that can be both found online on the website as well as on YouTube. And it really focuses on, again, the flagship program, which is all about creativity in the classroom and really using that as a way of teaching in core subjects. At Crayola Creativity Week, that happens 1 week in January. So we just completed our program a couple of months ago. We had 13.2 million children participate across 122 countries. And it's all about embedding that as a life skill. And we're obviously beginning already to plan, and they're excited about our January 2026 program. So folks can definitely check it out and sign up already on CrayolaCreativityWeek.com. And then we also have a wealth of other monthly programming that teachers can take advantage of, some of which are around how to actually use and to teach in the classroom. Some of that is around for themselves, for their own, to kind of rejuvenate and to build their own creative energy. And again, a lot of it is available on Crayola Learning YouTube channel as well. So all of the content that we produce is always free to access, to use, and it's our way of being able to really contribute to educators, to help support them in what they're doing. Such an incredibly important role, right, that they play in all of our lives. And that content is our way of being able to be helpful in being able to do it on an everyday basis, but also continuing to get their input and continue to have that relationship, so we can continue to do the kinds of things that is genuinely helpful and supportive of their mission and what they're trying to do to help kids learn.
I will certainly list links to your website and any information so people can find that readily. Victoria, this has just been such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.